"You're too boring in bed," my wife said after her spa weekend. And those 6 words detonated in our master bedroom like a carefully planted explosive. Not because they were unexpected. I'd been watching our marriage disintegrate for months through a series of red flags I'd been too trusting to properly investigate. But because she delivered them with such casual, practiced cruelty while unpacking designer lingerie I'd never seen her wear, sitting on our California king bed in our Westchester home. Her voice carrying that particular tone of dismissive finality that made me realize she'd been rehearsing this moment, planning this humiliation, probably discussing it with him during their romantic getaway I'd unknowingly funded through our joint credit card, while believing she was getting massages and chakra alignments at some luxury wellness retreat. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 44 years old, and I own Mitchell & Associates CPA, a boutique accounting firm in downtown White Plains that specializes in forensic accounting and high-net-worth tax planning. The kind of business that had provided my wife Amanda and me with a comfortable life in our colonial home overlooking the Hudson Valley, complete with the 3-car garage, the professionally landscaped grounds, and the kind of financial security that lets you book spontaneous trips to Martha's Vineyard without checking your investment portfolio first. But apparently none of that success was enough to keep my wife interested in the man who'd built it all from nothing while she pursued her spiritual awakening that had somehow evolved into systematic betrayal disguised as personal growth. Amanda, 41, worked as a senior marketing director for a luxury wellness brand in Manhattan, brilliant at creating campaigns that convinced affluent women to spend thousands on retreat experiences and holistic healing programs. Ambitious in ways I'd always supported and encouraged. The kind of woman who could dominate a product strategy meeting and then come home to help our 15-year-old son Tyler with his AP calculus homework. And for 17 years of marriage, I'd believed we were the couple who'd successfully navigated the challenges of demanding careers while maintaining genuine partnership, who still held hands during our evening walks around our neighborhood and sent each other inside jokes during boring client presentations. Our life had what I thought was an unshakable foundation. Morning coffee together on our wraparound porch before Tyler woke up, family dinners at least 4 nights a week despite our demanding schedules, weekend adventures exploring the Catskills or trying new restaurants in Tarrytown, annual trips to Napa Valley where we'd rediscover each other away from work pressures, and a social circle of successful couples who'd known us since our early 30s, back when we were still climbing our respective career ladders and dreaming about the life we'd eventually build together through mutual sacrifice and shared ambition. I'd trusted Amanda completely, the kind of bone-deep trust that comes from watching someone navigate life's challenges with integrity, from seeing how she treated our son, our friends, the contractors who worked on our house renovations. And I'd never had reason to question that trust until subtle changes started creeping in like hairline cracks in a foundation. So gradual I almost didn't notice them until they accumulated into a pattern that made my stomach tighten with unspoken dread every time she walked through our front door carrying stories about her new obsessions with expensive wellness treatments and spiritual transformation. The first sign was her sudden fascination with high-end spa retreats, joining an exclusive wellness center in Manhattan that charged more per session than most people's monthly car payments, buying organic skincare products and healing crystals that cost more than our monthly grocery budget, spending hours researching holistic healing and tantric energy work therapies that seemed to require increasingly frequent overnight trips to luxury resorts in the Berkshires and Adirondacks, always with explanations that sounded reasonable but felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced them during her commute from the city while planning her next deception. Then came the phone behavior changes. The device that used to sit casually on kitchen counters suddenly became something she guarded like classified information, carrying it everywhere, taking it to the bathroom, keeping it face down during family dinners, the soft buzz of notifications making her glance at the screen with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between anticipation and guilt that made me realize I was watching my wife become a stranger, while she claimed to be finding her authentic self through expensive wellness retreats that were apparently transforming her into someone who no longer found her husband sexually appealing or emotionally stimulating. The name Marcus started appearing in her wellness stories around this time, always in therapeutic contexts. Marcus had recommended this amazing energy healing session. Marcus was her spiritual advisor who understood chakra alignment. Marcus suggested this incredible retreat center where she could reconnect with her divine feminine energy. And I filed his name away as just another wellness guru until I realized how often she mentioned him, how her voice carried a different energy when she talked about their sessions. A breathless excitement and reverence that reminded me of how she used to talk about me during our early dating years, when everything felt electric and transformative. Amanda began working out obsessively, hiring a personal trainer who specialized in sensual movement and embodiment practices, buying workout clothes that were more revealing than anything she'd ever worn in our bedroom, spending hours perfecting her appearance for what she claimed were sacred healing ceremonies and tantric workshops that seemed to happen with increasing frequency, always with explanations about reclaiming her feminine power and awakening her sensual goddess that sounded like she was quoting from expensive self-help books I'd never seen but was apparently studying with religious devotion. Our intimacy started changing dramatically, not disappearing entirely but becoming conditional on her mood, her energy levels, her alignment with what she called her authentic desires. And when I tried to initiate the kind of spontaneous affection that had always been natural between us, she'd pull away with lectures about mindful intimacy and conscious connection, making me feel like I was failing some spiritual test I didn't understand while she claimed to be learning about real passion from her wellness practices with Marcus, who apparently understood her needs in ways her boring, predictable husband never could. I wanted to believe these explanations because the alternative was too terrifying to consider. The possibility that the woman I'd built my life around was using New Age spirituality as cover for systematic infidelity. That the partnership I'd counted on was slowly dissolving, while I remained obliviously supportive of her personal growth journey. Never imagining that my dedication to providing financial stability and emotional security was being interpreted as boring predictability by the woman who should have appreciated the foundation I'd worked 17 years to create for our family. My forensic accounting training had taught me to recognize patterns in financial data that others missed, and the same instincts that helped me uncover corporate fraud for my clients started activating as I noticed discrepancies in Amanda's spending patterns. Luxury hotel charges that didn't match her claimed retreat locations, restaurant bills for two people during times when she swore she was in solo meditation sessions, Uber trips from downtown Manhattan to upstate hotels on nights she claimed to be at her friend Sarah's apartment, processing her spiritual breakthroughs. The breaking point came on a Sunday evening in April when Amanda returned from another transformative healing weekend in the Catskills, glowing with what she claimed was renewed spiritual energy, but looking unmistakably like a woman who'd spent 3 days being thoroughly satisfied by someone who definitely wasn't her husband. And when I asked about the specific healing modalities she'd experienced, there was a pause just long enough to make me notice before she launched into a detailed description of tantric breathwork and sacred intimacy rituals that sounded more like erotic fantasy than wellness therapy. Her eyes bright with the memory of experiences she'd never share with the man who'd funded them. That night, as we lay in our bed with the new silk negligee she'd bought, but claimed was just for connecting with my divine feminine essence, she delivered her devastating assessment of our sexual relationship with the casual cruelty of someone who'd been comparing me to another man for months. Robert, I've been learning so much about authentic passion and transcendent intimacy through my healing work with Marcus. And I have to be honest, you're too boring in bed, too predictable, too focused on your own satisfaction instead of creating the kind of sacred union I need to feel truly alive as a woman. The words hung in the air like poison. And as I looked at my wife of 17 years, I realized that the trusting, optimistic husband who'd supported every expensive retreat and spiritual awakening workshop was dying, slowly being replaced by someone harder, more calculating. Someone who understood that if Amanda wanted to use our joint accounts to fund her affair with her spiritual advisor, while systematically destroying my self-worth through cruel psychological manipulation, I'd need to become far more strategic than boring, far more methodical than predictable. And as I lay there in the darkness, listening to her breathing beside me while she probably fantasized about Marcus and their next healing session, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to use my forensic accounting skills to investigate exactly what kind of spiritual transformation my wife was experiencing during those spa weekends. And when I gathered irrefutable evidence of her systematic betrayal, the woman who thought I was too boring in bed would discover that the predictable husband she'd underestimated was about to orchestrate the most interesting and devastating revelation of her entire life. Starting with her mother's 65th birthday celebration, where 3 generations of family would witness the complete destruction of her carefully constructed image as a devoted wife and spiritual seeker. The opportunity to uncover Amanda's systematic deception came the following Wednesday morning when she left for what she claimed was an intensive chakra alignment session with Marcus, rushing out in expensive athleisure wear while carrying her designer wellness bag. But in her haste to catch the early train to Manhattan, she'd forgotten the leather duffel on our foyer table. The same bag she always took to her spiritual retreats, that I now realized were elaborate cover stories for the most devastating betrayal of our 17-year marriage. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. As a forensic accountant, I'd spent 20 years uncovering financial fraud for corporate clients, developing an instinct for patterns that others missed, and the same analytical skills that helped me trace embezzlement through complex accounting systems were now screaming at me to investigate the bag sitting innocently on our marble foyer table, containing whatever props Amanda used to maintain her elaborate performance as a devoted wife seeking spiritual enlightenment, while systematically destroying our marriage with calculated precision and breathtaking cruelty. I carried the bag into my home office, set it on my desk, and stared at it for a full minute, that tight, buzzing feeling in my chest I only got when I was about to open a set of cooked books and knew I'd find fraud inside. Except this wasn't a client's financial records, this was my wife's double life. And whatever I discovered would either restore my faith in our marriage or provide the devastating evidence I needed to protect myself and Tyler from the woman who told me I was too boring in bed while using our joint accounts to fund her affair with her spiritual advisor. I unzipped the duffel expecting the usual props of her wellness obsession: organic skincare products, healing crystals, meditation journals. But wrapped in a silk scarf at the bottom, I found a slim black folder from the Mohonk Mountain House, a luxury resort in the Hudson Valley famous for its romantic couples packages. And when I opened it, the printed receipts inside made my stomach drop. Room reservations for 2 people, spa treatments specifically designed for couples, intimate dining experiences, all charged to our joint credit card, while I'd believed she was attending solo meditation retreats to reconnect with her divine feminine energy. The name on the reservation wasn't Amanda Mitchell, it was Marcus Hale, with my wife listed as his spiritual partner for what the itemized bill described as a sacred intimacy retreat weekend, complete with couples massage, tantric yoga sessions, and romantic dinners that cost more than most people's monthly salary. All paid for with money from the account I'd trusted her to manage responsibly, while she mocked my sexual inadequacy and planned my financial destruction with the precision of someone who turned adultery into a spiritual practice that justified any level of deception. My forensic training took over automatically, and I began documenting everything with the methodical precision I'd use for any complex fraud investigation. Photographing every receipt front and back, noting dates and amounts, cross-referencing the charges with her claimed retreat schedules, building a timeline that showed 6 months of systematic deception funded with over $18,000 of our shared resources, while she convinced me that I was the problem, that my boring predictability was stifling her spiritual growth and preventing her from becoming her authentic self through expensive wellness treatments that were actually elaborate romantic getaways with the man who was helping her plan my emotional and financial destruction. I logged into our shared credit card portal from my secure work laptop, exported the last year of statements to encrypted PDFs, and began analyzing the data with the same techniques I used to uncover corporate embezzlement, watching a clear pattern emerge. Every solo retreat coincided with charges to luxury hotels. Every meditation weekend generated restaurant bills for 2 people. Every chakra healing session resulted in purchases at upscale lingerie boutiques and romantic gift shops. The financial trail so comprehensive and damaging that I realized Amanda hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been conducting systematic marital fraud while using new age terminology to make me feel guilty for not supporting her personal transformation. That was actually just sophisticated theft disguised as spiritual awakening. The most devastating evidence came when I accessed our shared iCloud account, something Amanda had apparently forgotten when she'd upgraded her iPhone months earlier, and found hundreds of photos and videos that told the complete story of her betrayal. Intimate images taken in hotel rooms I'd unknowingly paid for, passionate videos of her with Marcus in various stages of undress, screenshots of text conversations where she described me as financially useful but spiritually dead, while discussing their post-divorce plans with the casual cruelty of someone who'd already written me out of her life story. Each piece of evidence timestamped during periods when she'd kissed me goodbye and claimed to be learning sacred intimacy practices that would supposedly benefit our marriage. Within 4 hours of discovering Amanda's wellness bag, I had contacted 2 professionals whose expertise would transform my growing suspicions into unassailable legal evidence. Laura Cole, a divorce attorney whose reputation for handling high-asset cases with surgical precision had made her the go-to choice for Westchester County's business elite when marriages imploded, and Amanda Richardson, a former NYPD detective turned private investigator whose specialty in digital forensics and hotel surveillance had helped dozens of betrayed spouses document affairs that seemed impossible to prove. Both women listening to my story with professional detachment while I laid out the evidence methodically, watching their expressions shift from routine consultation to recognition that this case involved premeditated marital fraud conducted with community property assets and a level of psychological manipulation that was truly exceptional. Laura's assessment was devastating in its clarity. Robert, this isn't just adultery. It's systematic financial abuse disguised as personal growth, conducted with your money while she prepared to divorce you on terms that would maximize her settlement and minimize your custody rights. And in New York, while we're technically no fault, judges absolutely consider conduct when dividing assets, especially when one spouse has been using marital funds to support an affair, while psychologically abusing their partner through gaslighting and emotional manipulation, disguised as spiritual superiority. Amanda Richardson outlined a surveillance strategy that would provide court-admissible evidence. GPS tracking on Amanda's jointly owned BMW, professional photography of her meetings with Marcus using telephoto lenses and timestamp technology, comprehensive financial auditing to trace every penny she'd spent on the affair, recorded conversations that would capture her lies in real time, and most importantly, digital forensics to recover deleted messages and photos that would reveal the full scope of their relationship, and the detailed exit strategy they'd been developing with Marcus's divorce attorney friend, creating an evidentiary package so comprehensive that no opposing counsel could dismiss it as circumstantial or misinterpreted. That evening, when Amanda returned from her chakra alignment session with her practiced glow of spiritual fulfillment, apologizing for being late while checking her phone immediately for Marcus's messages, I watched her perform the role of devoted wife with new understanding, seeing through every gesture, every expression of love, every claim about her wellness journey, knowing that upstairs in our bedroom, she was probably texting him about their next romantic getaway while I helped Tyler with his calculus homework. Trusting and completely unaware that the woman I'd supported for 17 years was systematically planning my destruction while using our son's college fund to pay for luxury hotel suites, where she mocked my sexual performance and celebrated her freedom from the boring, predictable husband who'd given her everything she needed to pursue her authentic self at his expense. As I sat across from her at dinner, watching Amanda describe her latest spiritual breakthrough with Marcus while our wedding photos hung on the walls behind her, I realized that the trusting, optimistic husband who'd believed every excuse and supported every expensive retreat was completely dead, replaced by someone harder, more calculating. Someone who understood. The first strategic decision I made that night, sitting alone in my home office while Amanda performed her nightly ritual of checking her phone and smiling at Marcus's messages upstairs, was that I wouldn't confront her emotionally, wouldn't demand explanations or ask the desperate questions that devastated husbands typically ask when their worlds collapse. Instead, if she wanted to turn our marriage into a calculated project of destruction disguised as spiritual enlightenment, then I would treat this like the most complex forensic investigation of my career, building an unassailable case with the methodical precision that had made me one of New York's most respected fraud investigators, ensuring that when the truth finally emerged, it wouldn't be in a private moment she could spin or deny, but at her mother's 65th birthday celebration where 3 generations of family would witness her complete destruction. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My forensic accounting background had taught me that emotional decisions create catastrophic investigative failures, and I couldn't afford any weakness in what was about to become the most important case of my life. So the following morning, after dropping Tyler at school and maintaining my facade of normalcy, I drove to Laura Cole's law office in downtown White Plains, where her reputation for dismantling high-net-worth divorces with surgical precision had earned her a corner suite overlooking the Hudson River. All glass and steel designed to intimidate opposing counsel, while reassuring clients that their attorney possessed both the resources and ruthlessness necessary to win battles that could reshape the rest of their lives. Laura emerged from her conference room precisely on time, late 50s, platinum blonde hair in a power chignon, navy suit that projected competence and authority, and when she gestured me toward the mahogany table with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Westchester County, I knew I'd found the right advocate for what was about to unfold. Someone who understood that successful men didn't just build businesses. They protected them from people who'd use marriage as a weapon to steal what they'd never earned through their own dedication and sacrifice. Especially when that theft was disguised as personal growth and spiritual awakening, that was actually just sophisticated financial fraud conducted with breathtaking arrogance. "Show me everything," she said, activating a digital recorder with practiced efficiency, and I laid out the evidence methodically. Amanda's changed behavior, the wellness bag discovery, Marcus's hotel receipts, the iCloud photos, the systematic financial deception. Watching Laura's expression remain professionally neutral even as she made notes that would eventually become the blueprint for Amanda's complete legal and financial destruction. Her Mont Blanc pen moving across yellow legal pads with the precision of a surgeon, planning an operation that would fundamentally reshape someone's entire future, while protecting my assets and custody rights from a woman who'd been systematically stealing marital funds while convincing me I was the problem. When I finished, Laura leaned back in her leather chair and delivered her assessment with the kind of clarity that made her worth every penny of her substantial retainer. "Robert, this isn't just adultery. It's systematic marital fraud conducted with community property assets, premeditated financial abuse disguised as wellness expenses, and psychological manipulation designed to make you complicit in funding your own betrayal while she prepared to divorce you on terms that would maximize her settlement. And in New York, while we're no fault. Judges absolutely consider conduct when dividing assets and determining custody, especially when one spouse has been systematically stealing marital funds while gaslighting their partner through spiritual superiority that was actually just sophisticated emotional abuse, designed to make you feel guilty for not supporting her supposed transformation." She outlined the strategy with military precision. First, Amanda Richardson would gather court-admissible evidence that Amanda couldn't deny or dismiss. Second, quietly restructure my business assets to protect Mitchell and Associates from any predatory claims she might make during divorce proceedings. Third, maintain absolute normalcy at home so she wouldn't become suspicious and destroy evidence or accelerate her timeline with Marcus. And fourth, document every financial expenditure related to her affair to establish a pattern of marital asset misuse that would impact the final settlement in ways she'd never anticipated. When she started planning my destruction with her spiritual advisor's enthusiastic assistance and professional guidance from his divorce attorney friend. Within 24 hours, I was sitting across from Amanda Richardson in her discreet office in Mount Kisco, a former NYPD detective whose transition to private investigation had been motivated by her expertise in digital forensics and her frustration with criminals who escaped justice due to legal technicalities, and whose reputation for thoroughness and discretion made her worth the $500 hourly rate that would soon become a regular expense in my quest for evidence so comprehensive that no opposing attorney could explain it away as misunderstandings between spouses going through a difficult period in their marriage, while one partner systematically stole from joint accounts to fund romantic getaways with her lover. Amanda listened to my story with the detached professionalism of someone who documented every variation of human betrayal, then laid out an investigation plan that would have impressed federal prosecutors. GPS tracking device legally installed on Amanda's BMW, since it was registered in both our names. Professional photography of her meetings with Marcus using telephoto lenses and timestamp technology that would be admissible in court, comprehensive financial auditing to trace every penny she'd spent on the affair, digital forensics to recover deleted communications and establish the full timeline of their relationship, and most importantly, hotel surveillance that would capture their intimate moments in common areas where privacy expectations were legally limited, creating a visual record so damaging that no jury would believe her claims about seeking spiritual enlightenment through wellness retreats that were actually romantic getaways funded with my money. The GPS tracker arrived via Amazon 2 days later, a device smaller than a deck of cards that I installed under Amanda's BMW during her morning meditation practice in our home studio. My hands steady despite the surreal nature of what I was doing, transforming myself from trusting husband into detective investigating the woman I'd promised to love and protect. The irony not lost on me that her spiritual awakening routine had provided the perfect cover for my counterintelligence operation against her systematic betrayal of our marriage vows and financial partnership, that she'd been conducting with the precision of a military campaign, designed to maximize her pleasure while minimizing any risk to her comfortable lifestyle. That evening, when Amanda announced another intensive healing weekend, with Marcus at what she claimed was a sacred sexuality retreat in the Berkshires. I watched her location on my phone app as she drove not to any wellness center, but to a luxury resort where Amanda Richardson's background check had confirmed Marcus maintained a regular suite. The GPS coordinates providing irrefutable proof that her spiritual transformation was actually another romantic getaway funded with our joint credit card, while I helped Tyler prepare for his SATs. Trusting and completely unaware that my wife was using our son's college savings to pay for hotel rooms, where she celebrated her freedom from the boring, predictable husband who'd supported her supposed journey of self-discovery with unwavering financial and emotional support. Over the next month, Amanda Richardson's team compiled evidence that was devastating in its thoroughness. High-resolution photographs of Amanda and Marcus entering hotels separately but leaving together, intimate dinners at upscale restaurants across the Hudson Valley, passionate embraces in parking garages captured with telephoto precision, weekend trips to luxury spas she described as solo meditation retreats, hotel surveillance footage showing them in compromising positions in common areas, and most damning, Amanda wearing the diamond anniversary necklace I'd given her for our 15th wedding anniversary during what was clearly an afternoon rendezvous. The symbolism so perfect it felt deliberately calculated to maximize the eventual emotional damage. When I discovered the full scope of their relationship and her systematic deception that had been funded entirely with money I'd earned through decades of building my accounting practice. The financial forensics revealed the true extent of her calculated betrayal. Over $32,000 in hotel charges, spa treatments, romantic dinners, expensive lingerie, gifts for Marcus, and luxury experiences, all paid from accounts I'd trusted her to manage responsibly. Money that represented not just theft, but the systematic use of our shared resources to fund her relationship with the man who was helping her plan my emotional and financial destruction, while she convinced me that I was the problem, that my boring predictability was preventing her from achieving the spiritual fulfillment she deserved through expensive wellness treatments that were actually elaborate romantic getaways designed to prepare her for the divorce she was planning with Marcus's enthusiastic support and legal guidance. Meanwhile, Laura's corporate attorney helped me quietly restructure Mitchell and Associates' ownership documents, creating governance structures that would make it impossible for any future ex-spouse to claim direct business ownership rather than financial settlement. Changes that appeared to be standard business growth practices, but actually created an impenetrable legal barrier around the company I'd spent 20 years building from nothing, ensuring that Amanda's mercenary calculations about my assets would prove dramatically incorrect when the divorce proceedings began, and she discovered that her spiritual advisor's legal advice had been completely worthless because he'd underestimated the man he'd helped her dismiss as boring and predictable. The emotional breaking point came during a Saturday morning when Tyler and I were reviewing his college application essays in our kitchen, and he asked with the devastating innocence that only teenagers possess, "Dad, is Mom having an affair? She's been acting really weird, always talking about this Marcus guy like he's some kind of guru." And my friend's mom went through the same spiritual awakening phase before she left his dad for her yoga instructor. And I don't want our family to fall apart like theirs did, because I need both my parents to be honest with me instead of pretending everything's normal when it obviously isn't. And I'm old enough to handle the truth about whatever's really happening. The phrase, "I'm old enough to handle the truth," hit me like a physical blow, reminding me that Tyler had been watching his mother's transformation too, recognizing that her spiritual journey was actually just selfish pursuit of excitement disguised as personal growth, and that my 17-year-old son was mature enough to see through Amanda's performance, while I'd been enabling it by funding her expensive retreats and supporting her supposed quest for authentic self-expression that was actually just systematic betrayal conducted with breathtaking arrogance and psychological manipulation designed to make me complicit in my own destruction. I looked at Tyler's concerned face and made him a promise that crystallized my resolve. "Son, whatever happens between your mother and me, you will always be my priority, and I will always fight to protect our relationship and your future, because some people change in ways that hurt everyone around them. But that doesn't mean you have to accept being hurt or pretend that wrong behavior is acceptable just because it's disguised as something spiritual or enlightened. And when the truth comes out, you'll understand that everything I'm doing now is to protect what really matters in our family." That night, after Tyler was asleep and Amanda was too exhausted from her healing work to spend time together, scrolling her phone with that secretive smile she thought I didn't notice, while probably planning her next expensive getaway with Marcus, I stood on our back deck overlooking the Hudson Valley and made my final mental shift from defense to offense. Realizing that protection wasn't enough, Amanda needed to face consequences that would pierce through whatever romantic fantasy she was living with Marcus. Consequences that would expose her systematic deception not just in legal documents, but in front of everyone whose opinion she'd spent years cultivating through careful image management as the successful, happily married woman who had it all, ensuring that her cruel declaration that I was too boring in bed would be remembered as the moment she revealed her own character so completely that no amount of spiritual rhetoric could ever restore the respect and reputation she was about to lose at her mother's birthday celebration, where 3 generations of family would witness the complete destruction of her carefully constructed identity as a devoted daughter, loving wife, an enlightened woman seeking higher consciousness through expensive wellness treatments that were actually just an elaborate cover story for the most selfish, calculated betrayal imaginable, conducted with my money in my name. While she convinced me that I was the obstacle to her authentic happiness and spiritual fulfillment, the perfect stage for Amanda's destruction presented itself at her mother Alina's 65th birthday celebration. An elegant dinner party at the Westchester Country Club, where 3 generations of family would gather to honor the woman who'd raised Amanda with values of integrity and devotion that made reputation more precious than wealth. And as I adjusted my platinum cufflinks in the club's marble-appointed men's room, I realized that the wife who had so casually dismissed me as too boring in bed was about to discover that her predictable, methodical husband had spent weeks orchestrating the most spectacular family downfall in their social circle's recent memory. A revelation that would destroy her carefully constructed image in front of everyone whose opinion she'd spent her entire adult life cultivating through strategic positioning and careful reputation management. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. For weeks, I had played the supportive son-in-law, helping finalize the menu arrangements, coordinating with the club's event staff, even suggesting we arrive early to ensure everything was perfect for Alina's milestone celebration. All while Amanda Richardson's team finalized the devastating video compilation that now resided on a discreet USB drive in my jacket pocket. And Laura Cole's legal team prepared emergency custody orders and asset protection documents that would be filed Monday morning after this evening's revelations transformed Amanda from beloved daughter and devoted wife into the family pariah, whose spiritual awakening had been exposed as systematic fraud conducted with breathtaking selfishness and calculated cruelty that would shock everyone who'd known her since childhood. My attendance was not only expected but essential. As the successful son-in-law who'd provided Amanda with the financial stability that allowed her to pursue her wellness journey, I was scheduled to give a toast honoring Alina's influence on our family, a speech I'd been crafting for weeks with the same attention to detail I used for complex fraud investigations, knowing that every word would be perfectly positioned to maximize the impact of what was about to unfold in front of Amanda's extended family, her lifelong friends, and the carefully curated guest list of Westchester society figures whose approval she desperately sought through years of strategic social positioning and image management that was about to crumble in less than 20 minutes. I arrived at the country club precisely at 6 o'clock, an hour before the formal celebration would begin, wearing a custom-tailored charcoal gray suit that projected quiet confidence and success, carrying myself with the bearing of a man who held devastating secrets and was finally ready to reveal them, my eyes immediately finding Amanda across the elegant private dining room, radiant in a midnight blue silk dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, orchestrating final preparations with the gracious authority that had made her the family's unofficial social coordinator, completely unaware that her boring, predictable husband was about to transform her mother's birthday into the most memorable and devastating family gathering in their social circle's history. The dinner party unfolded with the refined precision that Westchester County's elite could orchestrate. Crystal stemware catching warm candlelight, fresh floral arrangements of white roses and lilies, a pianist playing soft jazz standards, 3 generations of family circulating through the private dining room discussing upcoming charity galas and summer house plans, while uniformed staff served courses that had been prepared by the club's award-winning chef, none of them aware they were about to witness the spectacular destruction of the family member they'd all admired for her successful marriage and spiritual evolution that had supposedly brought her such peace and authentic fulfillment through her expensive wellness practices. I spent the first hour circulating strategically, greeting Amanda's extended family with the practiced ease of 17 years of family gatherings, discussing Mitchell and Associates with her father and uncles, complimenting her sisters on their children's academic achievements, projecting an image of steady reliability while observing Amanda. Noting how she moved through the crowd with that radiant confidence of someone who believed she'd successfully compartmentalized her double life. Her performance as devoted daughter and wife so flawless that even I might have been convinced if I hadn't seen the hotel receipts, the intimate photos, and the text messages where she described me as financially useful but spiritually dead, while planning her exit strategy with Marcus's enthusiastic assistance. My moment came during the traditional toast segment, when family members would speak about Alina's influence on their lives, and I approached the small podium that had been positioned near the room's built-in AV system, testing the microphone while Amanda beamed at me from across the gathering, probably proud that her reliable husband was finally participating more actively in family traditions, completely unaware that the man she'd dismissed as too boring in bed was about to deliver the most interesting and devastating speech in family history, one that would expose every lie she'd told and every betrayal she'd committed with the kind of methodical precision that would make this moment legendary in Westchester society circles for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the dining room as conversations died and heads turned. I'd like to speak about transformation, authenticity, and the journey of discovering who someone really is beneath the surface they present to the world, qualities that have made Alina such an inspiring mother-in-law, and that my wife Amanda has been exploring in her own unique way through her recent spiritual awakening journey that has taught all of us so much about the courage to pursue what truly fulfills you, regardless of conventional expectations or traditional commitments to family and partnership. Amanda's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips, her eyes meeting mine across the room with the first flicker of concern, but she was trapped by social convention and family expectations, unable to stop what was about to unfold without creating an even bigger scene, her smile becoming slightly strained as I clicked the remote and the room's large display screen flickered to life with a title slide that read, Amanda's Spiritual Journey, a documentary of sacred transformation and authentic living. The presentation began with a time-stamped photograph of Amanda and Marcus entering the Mohonk Mountain House, their profiles unmistakable despite the discreet angle, the date and time clearly visible in the corner, establishing the first piece of irrefutable evidence that would systematically destroy every lie she told her family about her wellness retreats and spiritual growth seminars that had supposedly been solo journeys of self-discovery, rather than romantic getaways funded with our joint accounts. While she convinced me that I was the obstacle to her authentic happiness and personal transformation through expensive therapeutic practices that were actually just adultery disguised as enlightenment. The images continued in methodical sequence. Amanda and Marcus leaving luxury hotels together after 3-day stays, sharing intimate dinners at upscale restaurants while I ate alone at home with Tyler. Passionate embraces in spa resort parking lots captured with telephoto precision. Weekend trips to romantic bed-and-breakfasts she described as meditation retreats. Each photograph building an undeniable narrative of systematic deception, conducted with the precision of a military campaign. Funded with over $32,000 of marital assets, while she told her family how supportive I was of her spiritual journey and how much our marriage had improved through her work with her healing advisor, who was helping her reconnect with her divine feminine energy through practices that had nothing to do with meditation and everything to do with systematic betrayal. Then came the text messages, blown up to fill the massive screen, Amanda's own words condemning her more effectively than any accusation I could have made. Robert is so boring and predictable, completely focused on his accounting practice, while Marcus makes me feel like a goddess awakening to her true power. And the tantric sessions are incredible. I never knew intimacy could be this transcendent and spiritually fulfilling. And after Tyler graduates, I'll file for divorce and take half his business assets. Then Marcus and I can open our own wellness center without any suburban obligations holding us back. Her casual cruelty and mercenary calculations displayed in high-definition clarity for 3 generations of family members who'd believed in her integrity and spiritual transformation that was actually just sophisticated theft disguised as personal growth. The silence in the dining room was absolute. 60 people frozen in horrified fascination as I systematically destroyed Amanda's reputation with her own evidence, watching Alina's face crumple in disbelief and disappointment. Her father's jaw clench in silent fury, her lifelong friends exchange shocked glances, realizing they'd been witnessing an elaborate performance, that the woman they'd trusted and celebrated had been conducting a months-long affair while using family gatherings to maintain her cover story. describing her boring husband's financial support for her supposed wellness journey while actually funding romantic getaways where she mocked his sexual performance and planned his destruction with the man who was helping her calculate the most profitable exit strategy from their marriage. Tyler, sitting at the family table, looked directly at me with an expression that was somehow both heartbroken and relieved. And when he spoke, his 17-year-old voice carried across the silent room with devastating clarity. "So all those weekends you were finding yourself, Mom, you were just cheating on Dad and spending my college money on hotel rooms. You made him feel like he wasn't good enough while you were the one lying to everyone who loves you." Amanda tried to speak, a choked sound escaping her lips, but no words came, just broken gasps that conveyed the magnitude of her shock and humiliation, while Alina stood slowly from her chair, her voice trembling but clear. "Amanda, I raised you to value loyalty and integrity above everything else. How could you betray not just your husband, but your son, your family, everyone who trusted you? This isn't spiritual awakening. This is selfish destruction disguised as enlightenment. And I am ashamed that my daughter could be capable of such calculated cruelty toward the man who supported you for 17 years." The presentation concluded with a final compilation. Hotel surveillance footage showing Amanda and Marcus in intimate moments in resort common areas, restaurant receipts for romantic dinners during claimed spiritual retreats, and a recording of Amanda describing me as financially useful but spiritually dead, while discussing their post-divorce plans with the casual cruelty of someone who'd already written me out of her life story. The evidence so comprehensive and damaging that no explanation or denial could possibly suffice, leaving her standing in her midnight blue silk dress like a defendant at her own trial. Surrounded by the ruins of her reputation, while 60 family members and friends processed the complete destruction of everything they'd believed about her character, her marriage, and her spiritual journey. "The most remarkable thing about authentic transformation," I said into the deathly quiet dining room, my voice calm and professional as I removed the USB drive from the presentation system, "is how it reveals true character, both the character of those who honor their commitments through difficult times, and those who systematically betray them while using family resources and emotional manipulation to fund their deception and plan their partner's destruction, all while convincing everyone around them that they're the victim of a boring, predictable husband who doesn't understand their need for spiritual fulfillment." I walked toward the dining room exit with the same measured pace I'd used entering, pausing only to place my hand briefly on Tyler's shoulder, meeting his eyes with a look that promised him he'd never have to question his father's commitment to protecting him from the woman who'd been willing to sacrifice his college fund for her affair with a man who'd helped her plan to minimize my custody rights during the divorce she'd been secretly orchestrating while performing the role of devoted wife